morning to the left side of the room. Hi, I'm John Lynch. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning for the Fall Yes MLS Brokers and Managers Forum. As I said, I'm John Lynch. I'm the chairman of Yes MLS. At this time, I'd like to have Carl correct me. That's me. At this time, I'd like to have the Yes MLS directors that are in attendance please stand. Marlon Taylor, he's our vice chairman. Jim Fox, our treasurer. Jim Camp is on our board. And Ed Galinsky is also here as well. There's Ed. And I'd like to also introduce the staff. This is the group that makes the organization run. We're kind of the fluff. But the day-to-day operations is done by the staff. And Carl Hughes is our executive officer. Our chief operating officer is John Trillich. John's here someplace in the back. John made all the sandwiches this morning. Jennifer Welch is the executive assistant. And Jennifer really keeps us all together. Dean Bunziger, he's the training and customer service manager. Dean's here someplace. Oh, there they are in the back. All standing in the back. Julie. Department. There she is. Heidi Ewing is the account executive. Heidi's back there. Laura Graver in the back there. Account executive Joyce Johnson. John Stun, pardon me. Account executive Tracy Muziel is the account executive. And next, we're going to have Carl give the program. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here. It's a great day in Northeast Ohio, as always. Apologize for the fog. That was supposed to be for Halloween. I'll get it back later. I appreciate the leadership that we have that were introduced. And appreciate this mouse not being stuck underneath here. There, that's me. There. Okay. So I want to welcome you and go through a quick overview with you. We have some great speakers today. We've got great information today that we're going to go through. We're going to mention the fact that this is being videoed. And we do that for all of ours now. We do streaming video, and it's also kept on YouTube. So please look for it and see. Maybe you'll see yourself in the audience later on. But it's important that we capture this information. A lot of people are unable to be here, and we'd like them to be informed as well. We're going to hear from Ann Pettit, which is always a great update. I'm going to talk a little bit about industry news as well as some statistics that I think you'll find interesting. Renee Galicia from NAR is going to be here. He's here to speak. And good friends of the MLS. It's a newer position. He's only been on the job for a year, so be kind. But I get to talk to Renee often in my job, and does a great job. We'll have Sheila Smith will be doing the Quality Assurance Department update. And then we'll have Peggy Young doing our system update. There's always a lot going on with our system with CoreLogic and other integrated products. And then we have Dave Phillips from Realtor.com with a brief update. And then we have a Q&A time that we'll look forward to hearing from you and hearing your concerns. And then we have door prizes at the end. And so we're going to move through this as quickly and steadily as we possibly can. And I'm going to start with our speaker, which is Ann Pettit. And I think some of you already know her, probably most do. She's been with us for a long time in the Division of Real Estate. In fact, has survived more than one administration, which I think in itself is a feat. And Ann does a great job. She has always been available to us. So I'm going to ask Ann to please come up and address the audience.
about any of the rest of you. However, between allergies and this lovely weather that we're having, not just up here, but down south too. There we go. All right. So what I wanted to share with all of you today, first and foremost, just real quickly, that long light blue ribbon in the middle is now the Division of Real Estate and Professional Licensing. Since last year, we've taken on 4 new programs. 4 new programs. So that's us now. But that's all of commerce that you see up there, the different divisions. For those who aren't familiar, we do everything from liquor to fires and real estate in between. So one thing that I wanted to share with you today were some statistics. And to start, I just want to show you over all of the programs, although this doesn't handle or address the cemetery grants that we are now doing. But here you have a slide talking about the number of credential holders in each of the programs. So you can see very clearly that real estate licensees are our main bread and butter in the division, and the area to which most of our human and other resources are allocated. But you might be interested in seeing the rest. And I'm going to go through these fairly quickly, but they are going to be available to you afterwards. I'm sure Carl and the staff will make those available. So for those of you who aren't aware, besides real estate and appraisers, and I know that you know that, and by the way, I need to stop and recognize Mr. Lynch. And I will always call him Mr. Lynch now since he's one of our appraiser board members. So you have good representation on the Ohio Real Estate Appraiser Board. He fulfills the certified appraiser and real estate broker seat that's required. So we've also got cemeteries here in Ohio. Just under 4,200 cemeteries are licensed, registered with us. And then you can see brokerages in the brownish color up in the left upper, 4639 right now. And the reason I point that out as we move through these is we keep going up and up and up in the number of active salespersons. However, we keep going down, down, down in the number of active principal brokers. And given the structure of Ohio license law, that's a little disconcerting, probably to you as well as to the commission. So you can see here, out of that 4,639, we only have 4,576 active principal brokers right now. So that's kind of notable. So another graphic I wanted to share with you, and I will admit it's difficult, and I'm sorry, I'm a walker when I speak, so I guess I'll have to just use my hands a lot more. The bottom line, and it's separated by a light blue, that bottom line is the flat line, and maybe, like I said, a little bit of a decrease in the overall number of active brokers. And you can see what has happened since state fiscal year 2012 with the number of brand new salespersons. Now, we are just through September, and we're just shy of our last fiscal year high of 3,798. So we'll see where that goes the rest of this fiscal year. But you can see the number of new salespersons being supervised by the number of principal brokers especially is a little bit concerning. All right, so let's get right into the meat of why Carl asked me to come spend some time with you today. And the first thing is about broker supervision. This has been an ongoing issue that the commission has been seeing, has been taking note of. And I'm guessing that with all of you out in the field, quote unquote, you really understand the importance of broker supervision. One thing I want to mention is about your prospective new affiliates, salespeople or management level licensees, associate brokers, if you have brokers who want to be in that category now so that they have no day-to-day responsibility. We want to make sure that when you as brokers are turning in that paperwork, that it is something that you've looked at before your signature has been affixed to that application. And that, oh, by the way, you actually are the one who signed that. Whether it's through an electronic signature tool or not, the fact is that nobody else can affix a principal broker signature to an application or a transfer other than the principal broker. So that's really important. The other thing that we're seeing a lot of is they answered yes to any of the legal or background questions. That is something that the commission is very interested in knowing, being assured that the principal broker under whom that potential licensee is going to practice has the full information of what's behind and what the explanation is for that answer. The number of former felony convictions that we see in front of the commission now continues to grow and actually is the majority of our caseload month to month at this point. Everybody deserves a second chance, and if you look at the statistics from your real estate commission, they do a great job of determining whether someone is due that second chance and the chance to practice real estate or not. You may be aware that now we have the opportunity to look at a predetermination, offer a letter that says whether or not my general counsel believes that I will or will not deny someone based on their criminal history. That is something that someone can file and receive from our office, and I would encourage that to happen. Here's the problem. That law was written to serve all licensing agencies across Ohio, and it doesn't give me as superintendent or the commission any latitude, so it's kind of like shoving us as a round peg into a square hole. So the most I can say is it appears, based on the information that you've provided, that I may or may not approve your application. That makes me feel really, really bad about somebody who comes forward and wants that predetermination. But until the law is changed, that is the option that is available. I would encourage anybody who is thinking about applying to sit for the licensing exam and becoming a licensee to at least talk to us about that. No surprise to most of you in this room, advertising continues to be a huge issue. I could probably have all 11 actual investigators sit and do nothing but look through advertising every day, and they would remain busy every day of every week, every work day of every week. So trying to continue to do the best, and some of you have heard me say this over and over again in the past, we want everybody to be in compliance. So if you have questions, first and foremost, give us a call. And so as speaking to brokers and managers, please reach out to either Shannon Drons, our enforcement chief, or my division counsel, Kim Wells. They will walk through with you. We will take a look at advertising that might be contemplated in your brokerage and give you our best thoughts on that. Of course, all of you sitting in here are realtor broker members, and you also have access to Peg and Lori and all of their years of expertise. And so between all of us, we want to make sure that you're doing it right and that somebody isn't out there complaining about your advertising. And oh, by the way, please, please, please remind all of your affiliated licensees that yes, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of the social media sites are advertising. when you're putting somebody's listing on there. And make sure that you have authority to put that listing on there, rather than just scraping somebody else's and putting it on your social media site. I'm telling you, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, how many of you have already had to have that kind of tough conversation with some of your younger licensees who just say, ooh, social media, ooh, I'm going to put all of this information on there. This is going to be great. I'm going to help somebody over at that brokerage with that listing because they're going to help me with mine. And it's like, our Ohio license laws are way behind our Gen Zers. Let's just put it that way. For now. So please come talk to us. Property management. I think you're probably all aware of the Property Management Task Force that operated for nearly a year and offered their report and recommendations to the Real Estate Commission a few months ago. It appears that once other legislative issues settle down, that there's probably some appetite, either from Ohio Realtors or perhaps another large stakeholder who can make things happen in the legislature to pursue whether it's called an endorsement. Certainly we won't call it a designation for all of the reasons you all are aware of, but something that is an add-on to a real estate license that says this particular individual took additional specialized education in the area of property management, and he or she and his or her either management level licensee and or principal broker who did the same thing are able to manage property for another for compensation. So stay tuned on that, but that's about all I have to share with you right now, is that that entire report was approved by the commission, and we're waiting to see whether it pops up in legislation in the next General Assembly. Oh boy, lock boxes. Lock boxes. So different regions, different MLSs have different lock boxes. Carl, you have electronic ones up here? Yes, you have electronic lock boxes up here. So you perhaps don't have quite the number of issues that some other areas of Ohio have currently. I will just remind you all, because if any of the commissioners were standing here beside me today, they'd probably grab the microphone and talk to you for about an hour on lock boxes and accessibility. Unsupervised, unlicensed access to a property, whether it is inhabited or not, is a huge, huge no-no. And it will get your license suspended for a significant amount of time. And we have more and more owners of property, sellers, filing complaints with the division at this point. And there are people who are still standing outside of a home, showing up toward the end of somebody else's showing without a real estate licensee and saying, oh, it's okay, Bob told me to just come on over and we'll lock up. No, that is not the way to do it. And I can answer any questions that you may have on that here in a few minutes, but it's really pretty basic. Don't let anybody else in, and you don't just go and open the door and leave for another appointment. That's not the way this is going to work. We've had too many prescription drugs, even over-the-counter drugs taken. You are all aware, I'm sure, of the proliferation of nanny cams in homes. And we don't even really have to do much of an investigation because the owner gives us that thumb drive or a DVD with that video on it, and our work's done. So please make sure that your folks are being very careful about that and understand the implications, the liability, not just for them as your licensees, but for you as a manager or broker. One, broker companies. I only bring this up, it's a business decision, absolutely, but I only bring up the fact that we have seen a number of brokers where there has been an incapacity or even worse, a death of a sole broker, principal broker, no other brokers, not even an associate in the company, and then all of the salespeople, all of your clients with all of those listings are coming to us and saying, "What now? What do we do?" Well, of course, I have authority to recommend to the court, probate court in your particular area, an ancillary trustee. However, many times there's nobody who's willing or able to step up to the plate. Now, I will remind you that an ancillary trustee is just there to wrap up the business. And so that person doesn't necessarily have to be a real estate licensee here in Ohio. We recently had a broker who passed, and his son, a pharmacist from somewhere else in Ohio, has stepped up to the plate and has his legal and financial advisors helping him, and the licensees in that brokerage are working really hard with him to wrap up that business. So I just say, as a precaution, you may, if you don't already have someone else in the brokerage who is even an associate or management level broker, you may want to contemplate that just for the unforeseen circumstances and necessity of continuation of business if that's your intention. Broker owner issues, that's another hot topic that you may not be aware of. And of course, you are all, how many brokers do we have today? Bunches of you. Okay, great. Thank you. How many managers? Fantastic. Broker owner issues. Oops. My bad. They come into play when we have an individual who is unlicensed in the state of Ohio, but has ownership interest in that real estate company, and they contract with a principal broker. The principal broker is the one who is filing for the real estate company license, and the name of that company resides with that broker, not the owner. So we are very careful about making sure that Kathy Clark, if you've never talked to her and you need something as a broker, please feel free to call her. She's my licensing manager, and she will walk you through anything licensing-wise that you need assistance with. I know Marlon has dealt with Kathy a lot. And, that's what we want. We want you to call or email and say, hey, I need help with this, or I've got a question, because that's what we're there for. And specifically, that's what she's there for. So anyhow, she makes really sure that she makes it very, very crystal clear to an owner, an unlicensed owner, who is calling and having questions for us, or their attorney's calling and has questions about opening a new company or setting up an additional company. What we're seeing is principal broker, or an owner rather, who's setting up multiple companies with different principal brokers because they're really selling that brokerage, that new brokerage, to that principal broker. And we tell the owner, you will not have ownership of this name. If that principal broker leaves you or something happens to him or her, that name dies with that person. And I don't mean dies, but it goes away, follows that principal broker if they want to keep it. So they could play hardball at some point and make sure that you don't have, that owner doesn't have that name. So I just share that with all of you brokers so that you know that if you are asked to do that, that name resides with you. You're really the owner of it. So enough about that. Preferred name reservations. We've had over 1,900 preferred name reservations at this point. So some of them are really interesting, and some of them make sense, like, Anne, and I grew up being called Annie, so I want to advertise Annie Pettit or Annie Fitzgerald, since everybody in Northwest Ohio knows me by that. They wouldn't know Pettit. So we still are continuing to get those applications, and if anybody in your brokerage, in your company, needs to advertise in something other than their licensed name, it does not change the licensed name. The licensed name will always be your full given name as it appears on your government-issued photo ID. This name registration, nickname, if you will, or preferred name, is to allow someone to use either a nickname, a derivative, maybe something just off the wall, like my nickname was Charlie, and I want to advertise as Charlie Pettit. At least somebody can find me. Consumers can find me because my nickname, my preferred name that I registered, is going to show up when they look on the e-license center. So that's what that's about. The next item, I'm sure you've heard plenty about, and that is, as of November 1st, put it off. Both of these issues, criminal history checks for new applicants, meaning got to give us your fingerprints, give BCI and I your fingerprints, and the real estate fee increases were supposed to go into effect, and actually do to technically go into effect October 15th. However, to give everybody an opportunity to, get ready for this and to sync them both up, I extended it to November 1st by policy. So they will go into effect November 1st. When I talk about new applicants, that also means if you have an existing salesperson and he or she is going to apply to become a broker, that's a new application, a new exam, and so that person will also have to submit a set of fingerprints for a criminal history check. As, again, you're probably all aware, this does not apply to those of you who are already licensed unless and until you have to file a new application of any type. So that goes into effect. The real estate fee increases, I really can't say enough thank yous for the support and understanding. I know that it's always tough to hear about a fee increase, and I dragged my feet for a considerable amount of time, about 5 or 6 years. However, the cost of doing business, as you're all aware, continues to rise, and so we just needed to be able to cover our expenses with the minimal staff we have at the division. So I just want to thank you as realtors for your support and understanding and asking the hard questions, because we need to answer those. I'm going to skip confidentiality for just a half a second and talk about manufactured homes. How many of you have licensees or somewhere in your brokerage somebody deals with manufactured housing listings and sales? I know Mr. Lynch does, absolutely. So, as you're aware, probably, we now also have authority over manufactured home dealers, brokers, and salespeople. And the number of salespeople continues to go up. What I want to say here to all of you as realtors is that your affiliated licensees may not pay, i.e. you may not pay, a manufactured home dealer or salesperson any type of fee unless and until that person also has a real estate license. We've been getting calls from manufactured homes folks who are dealerships in parks, in communities, saying, John Smith said that if I go and open this home and show this home for him, that he'll pay me to do that. I'm like, well, no, not unless you sign an independent contractor agreement, and then we're still going to have to talk about it because that still may cross some lines. So the good news is that our manufactured home licensees are reaching out, some of them, and asking the important question. But I just want to share that if you have any questions about what you may and may not do, with those licensees, please give us a call. Home inspector licensing, the brand new board just had its final appointment, and I'll go over some important dates in a minute. So let's go back to confidentiality a moment. I was asked to touch on this from a couple of standpoints, and I understand that you may have a couple of questions if we've got time. And confidentiality as far as your listing agreements, when they're in the MLS, I understand that almost every MLS, if not every MLS in Ohio at least, and probably nationwide, make sure that when you become a member of that MLS, you understand that any of your seller clients have to agree to providing information that is necessary to confirm, basically do an audit. Is that fair, Carl? Basically do an audit of what is legitimately on the MLS. So, they need to do, at the MLS, the staff needs to do their due diligence. Those contracts, listing agreements, you can't hold them back as confidential from the MLS when you've agreed as a member, and that's not my bailiwick to enforce. That's up to the MLS. But we've also had people say, well, I can't give that to the Division of Real Estate or the Division of Financial Institutions, or, well, let's be clear, again, one of the commissioners would grab the mic from me and go on for about an hour on this topic, and that is that when you are asked by the division, by one of the investigators or a manager in the division, on my behalf to provide documents for a complaint or an investigation, full investigation or mediation, you are required under license law to do so. You are much better off if you do that before I have to issue a subpoena. And in either case, I would highly recommend that your affiliated licensees understand that they may not just disregard the inquiry and ignore the division or the commission in our inquiries, because that will definitely get their license revoked. There have been no other areas of discipline, but when somebody does not cooperate with an inquiry or an investigation, the commission has revoked their license. So I just really want to encourage you as brokers to make sure that all of your affiliated licensees understand the critical nature of that. And, I leave it to Carl and the MLS staff to talk more at appropriate times about their requirements. But we've got similar requirements, and you could lose your membership, I believe, to the MLS if you're not compliant in that area as well. All right, enough of my preaching. On to some important dates, just to very quickly update you with regards to the home inspector licensing regulations in Ohio. So again, April 5th of this year was when the bill actually went into effect, but there were delayed effective dates for all of the components of implementation. And so originally 90 days after the date of the effective date of the bill was the deadline for appointments to the board. Governor DeWine had all of his made on July 2nd. Speaker of the House came a little bit after that, and Senate President finally made his appointment of the second consumer member on September 12th. And so that pushes, I'm going to skip down a couple of lines, that pushes the grandfathering period that's open from October 31st to January 10th. That's good news for those folks who are still out there and haven't come in under grandfathering yet. We've got active 400 home inspectors right now. We've got almost 300 applications in process. And as soon as the rules are through the process to be promulgated, they've been filed, And by the way, we had a brand new, from scratch, complete set of rules adopted by the board with only 32 hours of meeting time. And that's kind of a land speed record. So we're really, really pleased with that. So still, November 1st, right now, is when a person is required to have a license. There is a lot of conversation about whether or not somebody can make something happen to push that back, because you start to see probably the quandary we're going to be in. Is November 1st, you're required to have a license. You all have a requirement under new 4735.22, and how are you going to know, while you still have some folks you may be suggesting to your clients who can still make the grandfathering period between November 1st and January 10th. So we're kind of in a rough spot and a little backed into a corner right at the moment, but we want to make sure that we keep you all up to date. We're in constant contact with Scott and Peg especially, so they'll keep you updated as well. If you're not on our email blast, please come on to the division website and go to the home inspector information and sign up to get that information directly to your email as well if you wish. But that's where we're at right now with that program. We have our first adjudicatory meeting at the end of this month on the 28th, and out of the 400 licensees right now, I've only denied 3 applications. So we're doing pretty well. All right, I am happy, depending on what Carl says as far as timing here, to take a few questions if you have any, and I'm going to stay around, so I'll be available later too. Yes, sir.
In your newsletter, you said that there'll be a series of instructions for, as far as a process to go on the background check. When will we get some information about that?
Thank you. He asked about the information for the criminal history check for new applicants, and it's actually the same information that's available in a home inspector, on the home inspector link right now, and for manufactured homes and appraisers, but we will be getting that up the middle of this month. Absolutely.
Just so you know, raise your hand, and there's 2 roaming mics so that everybody can hear your question.
2 roaming mics. John, I think we've got somebody up front here. You've got the mic in front of you. Go ahead.
I've got 2 questions. One on the name. I registered my nickname Sandy, and I always advertise just Sandy on my signs. Do I have to say my first and last name, or can I just go Sandy on my signs?
No, that's the beauty of going with the preferred name now. You may just use your preferred name, so just Sandy, instead of when you used to have to put it in quotes or parentheses. You may just use Sandy now, because somebody's going to be able to go to the e-license lookup and find you just by Sandy.
The other question is, are you going to have a list of the licensed inspectors somewhere for us to be able to verify that they're licensed?
You may already look up home inspectors on our website from the e-license lookup, and all you have to do is, in the prefix, put OHI, and if you don't want everybody who's pending, go to the status and say active, click on active, and then search, and it will bring up all 400 and probably more than that, because we were issuing licenses again today. So it'll bring up all of the active licensed home inspectors who are currently there. Yes, sir.
Then down the road of advertising violations, can you give me, in your mind, the first 3 to 5, let's say, serious concerns that you have in this subject matter?
So with regard to advertising, the most the top 3 biggest concerns are somebody, a licensee advertising another licensee's listing without the listing broker or agent's permission. That is by far the biggest one. The second one is advertising on social media and not being able to one click back to where there is brokerage information in correct prominence. And 3 would be not being able to find the broker information in correct prominence.
I have
Question.
It seems like the teams that are being developed within the brokerages, the marketing, the marketing and the brokerage is very, if not even there, small. I mean, what's going on with that? It's just, I
So
see.
number 3.5 would be teams. And number 4 and number 5 and number 6, the rest of the top 10 are teams.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then, and this may be not a great question, but on the home inspections, so the buyer decides they want Uncle Bob or whatever to do the home inspection. They're not licensed. Okay, is it our brokerage responsibility to provide them or to have them sign off on something that we've advised them to use the licensed inspector? And if they decide to use whoever, I mean, what do we do?
A couple of points about that. They're all great questions, but that's a really great question, especially as we first get into the licensed home inspector arena. So the first thing I would say is they may have Uncle Bob do that inspection as long as Uncle Bob's not getting paid for it. Because if Uncle Bob is doing a home inspection, and actually, I think I'd want to go back and double check that Uncle Bob could even do anything that legitimately is called a home inspection without being licensed. So that's unlicensed activity, quite frankly. And you may want to let us know about it. And you may want to talk as an association about whether or not you have sort of a template to say, I'd like you to sign this that says, I recommended that you use a licensed home inspector. You are not required to offer names. The new statute says that if you do, you must provide at least 3 home inspectors who are licensed.
And just to follow up, I'm sorry to take up all this time, but as a listing agent or broker, and a home inspection was done, and the buyer's agent presents that ROC, release of contingency, many times as the listing agent or broker, we may not see that whole report or even know who did the inspection. So, I mean, how much due diligence do we need to do as a listing brokerage to make sure that whoever did that home inspection was licensed or not, just some, rules just calling out. So,
And I'm going to punt that question to Peg and Lori
okay.
to advise you on as brokers. Absolutely. I've got my own opinion as superintendent and the licensee.
Yeah.
But I think that you need to get that type of guidance from council, either your own and or OR.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hate to ever sidestep a question, but that's more appropriately answered by council. Yes, sir.
And I'm going to ask a question that I know a lot of people want to ask but will not ask.
Oh, I like those.
I would like to know what the Division of Real Estate or the Department of Commerce opinion is or their concerns about individuals who are purchasing properties, flipping them, and they're selling them, and they're not licensed, and they're doing all kinds of things. Is there any conversation or anything going on similar to what dealers do with automobiles, where you can't sell a certain amount of property unless you're licensed? Obviously, they have a right to set up their personal property, but we got a situation where we got a lot of flippers out here doing all kinds of things. They're not under any guidelines, no rules, or nothing. So I just wanted, I know a lot of other people want to know that too, but I'm gonna ask that question.
I actually spoke to, and I was shocked. I am embarrassed, first of all, to say that I had not heard of this particular group of investors in the Columbus area. And I spoke to them last week, one evening last week, and the majority of the people in the room were licensees. So I was anxious to know whether they just showed up because they wanted to hear what the investors and, let's say, wholesalers, the wholesalers. So to answer your question, there's a right way and a wrong way under Ohio law. My opinion of it doesn't matter. It's whether or not they are doing it in accordance with the current law. And so I will say to you that there is a right way and a wrong way to wholesale, i.e. flip. Obviously, if they are actually consummating a transaction, taking the property in their own name, and then turning around and selling it, at some point there are federal regulations that say whether or not you can do that within a certain period of time. However, they also may take an interest, an ownership interest by contract and turn around and market just that contract. That's wholesaling. They do not have to take title to the property, but they also may not advertise a picture of the property, the address of the property. They may say, 2,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, contract for sale. That's how they may advertise it. They may not put pictures, and that's where if you have questions or you see situations that are questionable to you in your experience, then please file a complaint with us. Let us look at it. We've done that over the years. Somebody the other day called and said, why aren't you doing anything about wholesaling? Holy smoke, we've been doing investigations and having cases on wholesaling and unlicensed activity therein for a little over a decade now. So we have to have some credible evidence. And let me remind you, just because we're not a court of law, we still have the same requirement to have substantive, probative evidence that will withstand a court appeal. Otherwise, the AG's office will not represent me or the commission on a case like that. But if you've got information, get it to us and let us work it to see if we can figure out whether they're due. And some of them, once they know that we have this information, they either get licensed or they quit it. So, sometimes we can just bring them into compliance one way or the other as well. So please give us the information. All right. Yes, sir.
Hi. First of all, I want to give a shout out to you guys at the division because, recently, again, Kathy Clark, amazing, but your whole staff is very proactive on top of it. And I know funding gets limited, but for you guys do exemplary work. So kudos to you guys for that.
Thank you.
But a
I
couple
appreciate
questions
it.
that I have.
We're human too.
That's right.
You know that. We're human too.
And they're very understanding because sometimes we just have no clue what we're doing, so they get it and know how to lead us in the right direction. A couple of things, and I'm going with the state of Pennsylvania because we're also in Pennsylvania. Fire first of all, we have buyer agency here. We know, we have to disclose who we're working for and all that. Why? I would like to know when we could expect contracts to be put in place. In other words, in Pennsylvania, we have buyer agency contracts. They have to be signed. They're part of what the division there says. You have to say, is it all or nothing, for example. We have different types of buyer agency agreements is where I'm going with it. And I'd like to see the division look into that because there's so much confusion out there. The other thing is teams. The state of Pennsylvania now has filed some rules and regulations that are going to be starting because I'm seeing confusion with some of the teams. I'm not against teams, that's not the point. It's more clarification because some of our consumers are thinking that the teams are the brokerage. It's almost like a brokerage within a brokerage. So I think there needs to be some clarification and some rules and regulations maybe put in place on that, and maybe you could check with Pennsylvania on what their legislation is. And I guess going back to the buyer thing, exclusive and non-exclusive contracts for buyer agencies.
So on the buyer agency contracts, there's also been some discussion, and remember, the division and the commission, we don't pass legislation. We implement and enforce. So if there's something that comes forth, we certainly, I think, I can speak for the commission on this, would be very supportive of anything that helps clarify agency. We have exclusive buyer's agency, but everybody we talk to, and I should say everybody, that's a generalization, gross generalization. So many buyer's agents, when they're on that side of the transaction, if they're able to do sellers and or dual as well, say, oh, I don't want to upset my buyer by trying, I don't want to ask them to sign this. And every time I say, why not? Why not? Because you're going to end up in a position where you're going to lose out, potentially. Okay, so if there is a movement to do that, I'm pretty sure there'd be good support for that. So let's talk about teams. How many of you are aware that we actually did adopt a rule on team advertising and had the full support of Ohio Realtors? And when it went to public hearing through the JCAR process, we had a bunch of brokers show up and say, oh, that's really bad for us. That's really good. We don't want, this is a terrible rule. They should be able to use any name they want to, including Realty Associates. I'm like, excuse me? That says to me company. That says to me brokerage. So I pulled it back, talked to the commission about it. The commission was adamant that we probably need to talk some more about it. I'm not going to speak for Mr. Williams and the staff at Ohio Realtors, but I'm pretty sure that they weren't happy because it had gone through the whole process. And yet, there was enough pushback at the last minute in a public hearing that I had to pull it back. That's been on the table. That's been the intention, my intention, the commission's intention, all along. So when we can all get the majority, at least, on the same page, we will have a rule that, and if you have other ideas, since I pulled it back yet again, and we have to look at it again, if you have additional ideas, please talk through your local association to the state association and let us know what your other thoughts are. It really does need to move forward because you hit the nail on the head. And yet these other brokers are saying consumers don't care. And you know what? We haven't had one single complaint from a consumer. It's all licensee on licensee. However, to me, it's misleading. It's misleading advertising to me. So anything y'all can do to help push that forward, It would be great. Yes, sir.
Since it sounds like there was a small group of brokers that were there complaining about it, and a large group of brokers, frankly, I didn't know that there was a hearing that we could go say positive things about it for some reason. How do we move this forward so that the majority of brokers, which I believe would like this, can in fact help get this implemented?
And I think you just said the magic words. Get a large group that will come before JCAR and provide testimony that you're in support of it. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. Mr. Camp.
And switch.
So you got to play by the rules. Here we go.
Switching gears, I assume for the predetermination, that would be felonies or misdemeanors or both. And is there a form for that or a procedure on the website?
Thank you very much for asking that question. Yes, there is a form on the department's website, so on the Commerce website, and it's a predetermination for any conviction. If someone has, let's say someone has had a number of outstanding judgments also, it might be good. So it doesn't just need to be about a conviction. If they think they're going to, actually it does have to be just about a criminal conviction. I take that back. That process only applies to criminal convictions. And that's the other part of the problem as far as the commissioner and I are concerned. We wanted something specific in 4735 that said that if any applicant was going to answer any of those questions, yes, that he or she could apply for a predetermination, provide the documentation and explanation, and they could receive said predetermination from the superintendent. So, right now it's just for criminal convictions, misdemeanor or felony. Thanks.
And I'm going to jump in with a question because we get this question all the time at the MLS. I recommended to a number of people just this week alone that they come to this meeting and ask the question of you. So it's one of those that
Nobody wants to ask.
nobody wants to ask, but they want to know. Does the division take any position or consider looking at the situation with some of these coming soon listings where a listing agreement does not exist? They only have a marketing agreement, and as what we've been told from sources, that the law only requires that they have a marketing agreement or the permission of the seller to market it. But they've got websites, their own website that deals with nothing but these listings. They got signs in the yard. And how does the division feel about the protection of the consumer with that?
Thank you, John. I think I was supposed to put that in my slides, and it must have just been Freudian slip. Because we've talked about this a few times. So here is the division and the commission's position on that. We will not ever step on the toes of your MLS rules. That is up to your MLS and that board and its rules. However, we will always look, if we get a complaint, we will always look first to, did the seller provide informed consent? All right? And besides, because everybody always latches on to consent. Yes, I got them to sign to say that they were just fine with me doing this. Informed consent. Does that seller have information in his or her hands that explains to them what the advantages and disadvantages of holding that property off the MLS may mean? And notice I say may mean. Every property is different. But that's really what it hinges on for us, John, if and when. And here again, we have not gotten to date, after all the time we've been talking about this, we have not gotten a complaint from a seller. Because normally, something good happens for the seller, i.e. the property sold, and that seller doesn't necessarily know whether they could have gotten X% more had it been fully exposed to the marketplace. But we can only look at the intent of the seller. And if we interview a seller and they tell us, oh, absolutely, I knew what was happening. I didn't want my home in the MLS because I don't. There are a lot of different reasons, and some of them are very, very valid. And not all of them are because it's LeBron James's property, and that doesn't really need to be too fully exposed. But that's the linchpin for us, the litmus. All right. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate being here.
Aren't we fortunate to have her? She's a great example of leadership and someone that really understands the issues, and it's very delightful to have her here. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of things here. One of the big concerns in the industry, this is not just here, but it certainly is here as well, is agent safety concerns. Out in the hallway, you'll find that Real Safe Agent is present with a table, and we have begun implementing that product. We do, in fact, plan to reintroduce it, as there's been a lot of new additions to the product, and what it does is connect the community of all real estate agents and brokers, that when you're showing property, you're not only connected with the group that you select, but you're connected with GPS and also a deep entry into 911 so that they can see with GPS where you are explicitly, and it's a safety feature that I think is extremely important. One of the things that's being added to Real Safe Agent, and this is a member service of Yes MLS, we don't have a separate fee for this, but being added is wire fraud issues being addressed. Wire fraud is a real problem. I know I sold my car to a couple in Australia. It was a classic car. I was concerned because they were wiring me the money. Because I've heard so much about wire fraud, I have to admit I almost said, just send me a check, because I hated the idea of dealing with it. Well, all of you deal with it probably on a daily basis in your real estate businesses, and it's getting a little bit more of a concern. So Real Safe Agent is launching the wire fraud product here. It will be added in that portfolio. There will be no additional charge. And the wire fraud will include a $1 million policy for any of you that are using it against wire fraud, because you're a member of Yes MLS and using that product. That product works with secure chat rooms, and it will help you sleep well at night after you're having a closing and you have to have money wired to you or to the title agency. So that's one issue that I wanted to just mention. We have other security concerns, and that would be the client property security concerns. And Ann touched on this, and while we do have super electronic lock boxes in the region, they're not all the way widespread. The board of directors has decided that as part of the membership of Yes MLS, we will be providing e-key access to your smartphone. So the app will be available to you. There's no charge for that. It will be part of the membership. And you're going to be able to now access every super lock box in the area. These combination locks are absolutely unsafe. I think Ann made a good enough point about the dangers of not having electronic lockbox service. So this is an exciting time for us as we're working through the process. In the first quarter of 2020, you will all be issued access to e-keys through the Supra product. And the lock boxes, a lot of you already have lock boxes. Can I ask for the show of hands, how many of you have Supra lock boxes that you own? Okay, so that will probably grow. And the thing that's exciting about lock boxes is that you don't have to buy brand new. They're available as used products as well as new. And so there will be a lot more information about that in the future. So the other thing is, I wanted to make a point here was that we had 2 showing services in our region, and it was a bit of a challenge with CSS and showing time. And it was amazing how split our membership was on what one they preferred. I'll just give you one brief background piece, and that is that CSS is slightly older than showing time, and they started with a showing desk, and it was very labor intensive, so they had more staffing. And it was done mostly all through the telephone, and then over the years, some information was added into the MLS databases in the system. Showing Time is a younger company and started really with the technology, and they led in technological advances over CSS. So you find yourself in a debate, which one do I go with? Well, Showing Time has acquired CSS, so the problem is resolved. So now what's going to happen is Showing Time, which is our product, service, and company now, what they will be doing is transitioning everything to Showing Time. And so you'll end up with the best of the labor force, the best of the technology all under one roof. There are some changes that will impact us. One is that all CSS Appointment Center customers will be moved to the Showing Time platform by November 19, 2019. There was a app that we had in the system that we did provide without charge that was done for us by the showing services, and it was gracious of them to do it, but that can't continue forever. And so by the end of the year, that part will go away, and you will need to have your service with Showing Time if you would like to have the showing service and have it show up in the system. We will still have the full integration for all of those being served by Showing Time, but that will be a change that will take place at the end of the year. We do appreciate these partners that have allowed us to have some of these products at no charge to the MLS. Something I had done in the past, I used to do a 10-year market comparison, and 2005 was a miserable tough year because it was so good. Everything looked worse. I could never get past it, and I thought, well, let me just see what it looks like, because I haven't done this for a while. So I had a little fun with it, and what you're seeing up here, by the way, you have in your package, you have all the slides, so any of this information is already yours. If you look at what the comparison was, I kind of highlighted on your right side there, the August 1st, 2019, to see how compared to August 1st, 2009. And the green, of course, is higher and the red was lower. Now, so what you have is new listings are down by 0.82%, just under 1%, and the solds are up 35.6%, average price up 36%, and days on market down by 28%. So the market's looking really terrific. But I would call to your attention, and then you're going to hear a little more about this, I'm sure. But under the new listings, you see we had 5,802, which was higher in 2019, and year-to-date is low. Well, year-to-date should have been higher, but this is the result of holding listings out of the MLS. So you lose some of the inventory you can be selling. So who knows just how good our market could have been and how it will be if we start to cooperate more entirely by exposing these properties to the MLS. Well, through the MLS, that's who I work for. But I work for all of you too, and I believe what I'm telling you. So these numbers, I think, reflect a great market, and I did dip into 2005, but I couldn't get a real clear and concise reading because there's a lot of things that changed in our database. Remember, we are now, as of May 1st, 2018, we became Yes MLS. We were Normals and Crisp, so the databases had to be pulled together. Even the little comparison I'm showing you here, I had to do a lot of nitpicking to get it to where it could be equal. But these numbers are real. This actually is a good comparison of 09 and 2019. So now we have one of the speaker that's going to be after me, Renee Galicia. Sorry about that, Renee. I knew I was going to do that because I asked. But Renee will be talking a little bit about this, but I wanted to give some background on this. The MLS here has looked at this for some time, and this is related to what John's question was to Ann. And a proposal is coming forth from the National Association of Realtors. I will tell you that I've served on a lot of their committees. I still serve on the MLS Policy and Issues Committee of the National Association. We will be hearing this motion in November in San Francisco. This is a combination of work coming from the CMLS, Cove Group, the NAR Emerging Issues Task Force, which I used to serve on, and all of these groups have come together and they've come up with an idea of encouraging participation and sharing information across lines. So the NAR proposal of MLS Statement 8.0, the recommendation that the following policy be adopted in the NAR handbook on MLS mobile listing service policy and new MLS Statement 8.0 within 24 hours of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. Public marketing includes, but is not limited to, flyers displayed in windows, yard signs, digital marketing on public-facing websites, brokerage website displays, including IDX and DOW, digital communications, marketing, email blasts, multiple brokerage listing sharing networks, and applications available to the general public. So basically, and the reason that 24 hours is in there, and I think I've had 6 or 7 people that saw that and asked me about it, we have a 48-hour rule here. Some have 24 and some have 72. I think that that's where that time frame comes from, but I will tell you that this will take some discussion. We're going to have debate prior to the committee making a decision at NAR. So there's a forum that happens first. It's debated on in a big platform of 1,500 people or so. And then it goes into our committees for our action. Whatever we do gets then passed on to the NAR leadership team, and then that gets passed on to the board of directors who makes a decision. So I can't say to you conclusively whether it will pass in November. I think it's good language. It was taken from an MLS that already practices this, Northwest MLS up in Washington State. And so it's something that we're going to be dealing with. So with that, I would say if you have questions that you have concerns about, you can forward them to me. I don't know if I have time to take any right now, but Renee may take a few minutes and maybe add some of the things that I didn't have because I wasn't at all the meeting. So, having said that, I am now going to introduce Renee with a hot mic.
Good morning. So I'm the Director of MLS Engagement at NAR. I've been there for about a year. Prior to coming to NAR, I worked at the California Region MLS for about 8 years there. Most of my time was spent in the compliance department and data licensing, so intimately familiar with the compliance issues that you all face. A couple updates from the national level. I have a couple minutes, so I'm going to run through several of these. I'll be here throughout the meeting and afterwards, so feel free to come up to me and if you want to chat. But if not, you can also email me. My email address is on the screen. I want to make sure that we're always accessible to you. And I also want to provide my office line if you would like to call and chat at any time. That is 202-383-1094. Once again, 202-383-1094. So I'll start with what Carl just mentioned, which is what we're terming the Clear Cooperation Proposal, or the MLS Cooperation Proposal. You have a copy of the handout in your packets. And just some background on how this came to be. This policy comes out of the MLS Tech and Emerging Issues Advisory Board. NAR staff does not make policy. We leave that to that's the work of our advisory boards, our committees. The MLS Tech and Emerging Issues Advisory Board is a subset from the MLS policy, or the Multiple Listing Policy and Issues Committee. And the The advisory board consists of about half brokers and half MLS executives. By the way, if you're ever interested in applying to serve on any of the committees, towards the beginning of each calendar year, you'll see the committee application process open up, and you can apply to serve on any of the committees or advisory boards. Now, this policy doesn't change anything in our existing handbook in terms of the requirement already exists to submit listings to the MLS. Listings of the properties that qualify within the MLS service area. So that's kind of the default starting point. You take a listing, you're required to submit it to the MLS. Then there's the exception, right? Where if the seller has instructed you not to submit the listing to the MLS, then you can do so, but you still have to comply with the local MLS rule that essentially says that you still have to report that listing to the MLS and submit a seller signed certification. Again, I think informed consent is an overarching theme there, making sure that you provided those disclosures to the seller. This policy kind of layer on top of that. If you've made the conscious decision and your seller has instructed you to leave the property out of the MLS, say create an office exclusive for whatever purpose, there's a lot of legitimate purposes to have an office exclusive. But once a conscious decision has been made to now expose that listing for the benefit of the seller to a wider audience, then this policy would be triggered, which says that once that decision has been made and you've effectively begun marketing the listing publicly, then it's in the seller's best interest that the listing be exposed to the wide audience of the MLS. So within 24 hours of undertaking that task of exposing the listing to the general public, you must then in turn submit it to the MLS for cooperation. So that's kind of a little bit of background, and this was debated. The term, I will add that the term marketing was also debated at the advisory board level. Should they use advertising? Should they use marketing? They opted to go with marketing because advertising is a component. Advertising is a component of marketing. So they wanted to make sure that they were encompassing quite a number of things. We do have some FAQs that we'll continue to add on to or revise based on your feedback. We're also looking for guidance or to provide some guidance to the MLSs if there's some questions on implementation or enforcement. We've received a number of those. But if you have any questions, issues, concerns, would like to see revision, please feel free to email us as well. You can send them to Carl. Carl can send them over to us. You can call me or email me, and we'll make sure that we route those to the advisory board and the committee. Again, the overall MLS committee will consider this at our meeting in November in San Francisco, and then from there we'll forward it on to the board of directors. I'm happy to take any questions. If not, I can run through a couple other items.
Question.
We got two here. I'll wait for the mics.
Oh, yes, mine. So, the MLS talked about implementing this, and there was a veiled threat that there would be a lawsuit filed if we did that. What is NAR's response if lawsuits get filed against MLS by brokers that are practicing this now?
Yeah, so the advisory board considered this as, again, the underlying goal and the overarching theme really of this is to make sure that we're still providing a pro-consumer, pro-competitive marketplace. If the decision has been made that it's in the seller's best interest to expose this property to a wide audience, then submitting it to the MLS certainly achieves that goal. We've internally vetted it through a legal and through outside counsel as well to make sure that it's in line with those principles, and we feel that it is. At least the guidance that we received back. So, we would firmly support and stand behind any challenge to this policy.
The question I have is, are you taking into consideration smaller companies that don't have full-time staff? It's often a very difficult thing when you have a small number of people, no full-time staff. Not everyone comes in to the office. A lot of times we're backed up for days doing things. I think 48 hours is too soon, a lot of times. Nights and weekends obviously are, exempt, I would assume. But it's very difficult to get all the paperwork done, especially when you're busy operating, busy time of the year. You can't get done in 24 hours. Think about it. You get a listing at 10 o'clock at night, and this is for probably residential more than commercial. You get a listing at 10 o'clock at night. You get up in the morning, you got another appointment, you do something else, anybody that can put it in is gone by the time you get back in the office, and you're going out again that night. What happened to the 24 hours? It was gone. It was gone before you even knew it, right? What about that? I mean, why take into consideration just the larger companies? You hand it to a secretary, and they put everything on wherever they got to do. You got to sort out the pictures, you got to edit, you got to do all these kind of things. It's almost impossible for a smaller company to do that. Why would you put it on 24 hours?
It's a great question, and that is one of the items that the advisory board spent a lot of time discussing. And I would encourage you, if that is a challenge or would be an obstacle, please send in some of that feedback so that they can consider potentially revising or taking into account some of these issues. The reason they settled, or the discussions that led up to settling on the 24 hours is that this is something that's contemplated, right? That this is something that the agent and the broker are managing through, where the marketing plan, if you will, is we'll take this listing, seller has agreed to leave it off the MLS, and our target date to expose it to the general public is in X number of days. Then now you have a sense for, okay, I have to comply with this rule, so I have to factor this in and putting it within my expected go live date, if you will. What we also don't address here, and I won't, I'll mention some ideas, not necessarily an NAR position, but we didn't address, I think we touched on it on the FAQs, this policy doesn't drive how an MLS implements it. In other words, an MLS can choose to, for example, institute a coming soon status or a draft status where it would allow brokers to input that listing, an excluded listing, knowing that it will be exposed at a later time to help curb some of the data input issues. So there's some potential there to resolve some of those issues through that method. But we've also had requests to eliminate the 24-hour reference and just make it a blanket. As soon as you decide to market it, you have to input it into the MLS. So there's several competing thoughts there. I would encourage you to make sure that you contact us to submit that feedback and we'll route it to the reservoir. Yes, ma'am.
Would you reduce the fees for the late payments and maybe delay them if you do pass the 24 hours?
Fees and payments, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Oh, to the MLS. Yeah, I'll leave that to Carl and the MLS. We don't address fees or manage fees that are at the NAR level.
Having been through these kinds of things before, don't get too hung up on the 24 hours. There'll be a lot of discussion, and I suspect because the handbook is what we go by for a guide for our own rules. And what we tend to find is that there's a little latitude put in there, and the issue is we want to get it on the market before, we want to get it in the MLS before you start your heavy marketing. And so I think we're probably going to see something being done about the hours that we typically, ours is 48, some are 24, some are 7. I think you're going to see something in the verbiage that'll say it's acceptable, the MLS's standard required time to get information.
Yeah, great point. If there are no other questions on this specific item.
I'd like to ask one question.
Yes.
It appears that nobody in our system today is looking out for the smaller brokerage. I think that our needs should be addressed also. It's not only the bigger companies that are doing all the business. There are some very effective smaller brokers that work a niche market, and nobody's in the system is representing our interests.
I would, so my response to that would be, part of what we're doing is making sure that we notify membership overall, not by size of brokerage, not by location, our entire membership. We've posted this on our website, on our Realtor magazine, discussion is occurring on the hub. We certainly don't design policy to help or hinder brokerages by size. So if there are any concerns that you have in implementing this or managing through this, I would invite you to join the conversation and make us aware of what those issues are so that we can have the advisory board or maybe even the committee address those. As Carl mentioned, This will be debated in a public forum at the MLS committee, so I would also invite you to attend there and also voice any concerns and support or against this policy. We certainly want to take everything into account, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're helping not only the consumers but also the cooperative nature of the MLS. One more question.
And I got okay. And I'm just going to play devil's advocate, and you're talking about, and I'm kind of piggyback off of what Jim said. But the problem that I see is we're telling maybe a company it's their listing how to do business. And so to me, it's kind of a gray area. You can say it's been vetted legally, but it would hate to see this even blow up bigger. The thing that I'm looking at is that, could this backfire and hurt an MLS and put an MLS where larger brokers say, hey, we got a lot of the listings and we don't like this, so let's just do our own. And I don't like that, but I'm just playing devil's advocate. So has anybody thought about that? Because if they have the listings, they got the power.
Yeah, and just to expand on the conversations that have occurred at the NAR level, we have had a discussion with a second advisory board, which is the MLS Executives Advisory Board, a little over 20 MLS executives throughout the country. And we've also had discussions and presented this policy to the, what we call the RES, or the Real Estate Services Board, which is brokers throughout the country. And so we have feedback from both those groups, and generally they've been supportive. I'm sure we have questions about the time frame, or another item that I was going to add is we're getting a lot of questions about what does it mean to advertise to the public and the intent behind that. So yes, we're making sure that we're involving everyone in that conversation. We want as much feedback as possible. I will add, just to wrap up on this particular item, we've had a lot of questions about what it means to advertise to the public. The intent here, and I believe Ohio, the division has, it has a rule that encompasses the thoughts of the advisory board, which is when you're working with a client one-on-one, or they've initiated, your representative buyer, they've initiated some conversations about looking for property. This rule would not consider them a member of the general public. This is more intended towards general, mass market communications, social media communications, these private listing network type groups, and the like. Okay. As I mentioned, I'll be here the rest of the day, so if you'd like to chat further, please feel free to see me. Just a couple more items here before I wrap up. The MLS Tech and Emerging Issues Advisory Board at the meeting earlier this year also kicked around the idea and talking about what is an MLS and what are some of the basic services or the standards that the MLS should be meeting. So a work group or task force is being impaneled, a mixture of brokers and MLS executives to take a look at that question. There's no policy direction that's been given to that group. It's just kind of an open-ended question of should there be a definition of or a listing of what minimum standards an MLS should be providing or should adhere to. So if you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see, thoughts in support or against, again, please feel free to reach out. They'll have their first meeting. We're in the process of impaneling that group now with the goal of having the first meeting later this month. And hopefully some recommendations maybe by November. Okay. I mentioned communications a couple times. If you're not part of the hub, so it's the hub.realtor, please go on the website, log in. That's a forum where we primarily communicate through. You'll find several communities, if you will, that are listed in the hub. And the MLS, again, MLS be my focus. We have a couple MLS areas there, but we have a general forum there. You don't have to log into that every single day. Just log into it, set the email settings so that you get a daily digest or a weekly digest, just so that you're in the loop on what's occurring at NAR and what's occurring at the various committees as well. If you have any issues getting in, please feel free to reach out to me as well, and I'll connect you with our folks so you can make sure that you have access to the hub. A couple items that I have discussed with other MLSs throughout the country as well, or have heard from other MLSs in the country. There's been an increasing concern over use of photographs, in particular obtaining proper permission to use photographs. We're no longer in an era where, I'll say, oftentimes agents and brokers think that, by simply paying for photographs that you now own the photographs, right? You hire a photographer, you send them out, you take pictures, you exchange those for money, and now you own them. Unfortunately, we've seen an increase in litigation in that field, and just as everything with real estate, it's better that it's in writing, right? And so MLSs are instituting programs, several MLSs have instituted programs to hopefully address this issue, to make sure that it's one component of education and the other of vetting photographers. So I've seen some MLSs do a preferred or an approved photographer type program where they vet the agreements that are in place. Just word of caution, make sure that on the brokerage level, you're having those discussions with your agents, ensuring that your agents are either obtaining, whether it's a license or an assignment of ownership, whatever the case may be for those photographs. We're in an environment where that's becoming an issue now, especially as they go into the MLS. The MLS could fall under scrutiny for those items as well. So we're seeing some of that. We also recently integrated, so we're expanding our commercial efforts at NAR. We recently entered into agreements with companies called Revitas and Crexi. And they, through the partnership with NAR, if you sell commercial real estate, they're providing a discounted service price point for NAR members. But more importantly, if you don't have a need to use membership or obtain membership through those companies, we're flowing the data from those two platforms into RPR Commercial, so that you don't need to pay to get access to that data. So if you just want to see what's going on in the marketplace, or want to provide commercial listing information to, on reporting or whatnot, you can access that. That's live now. We have quite an uptick in commercial listings within RPR now.
What's that under? Where do you find that?
It's RPR has a commercial section, and on their platform, I think it's in the upper right-hand corner where you can switch over, and all the information is there. Yes.
Well, I want to make you aware too that through ACAR we've set up a commercial platform that is populated right now by about 150 commercial agents throughout Northeast Ohio. If you wish to participate in that, you can. It's separate from Yes MLS, but it's only for commercial practitioners, and it is connected to RPR, and it's a national public-facing website and a local and statewide public-facing website. We cover all of Ohio right now. So if you're interested in commercial, let me know.
Great. With that, I'll wrap up there. Otherwise, I'll keep talking the rest of the day. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the opportunity.
It's great having Renee on board. By the way, yesterday is his 1-year anniversary, so let's hear it for Renee. And now it's time for Sheila Smith to come up with the quality assurance report.
Thank you, Carl, and good morning. Good morning. As real estate professionals, I thought you might enjoy these next 3 photos about how not to remodel. I also want to issue a disclaimer. This is purely strictly my opinion. It's not that of the MLS, but it should be. How not to remodel windows. How not to replace them. Next one, interesting stairs to navigate. May not be up to code. There's no railing. Would probably require some additional liability coverage. The third one, interesting multi-purpose room. How would you categorize this in your listing? Room count, type of room. Good. Now for the more serious pieces, parts. Rule changes since fall of last year. We do now have, it was last fall, the 48-hour rule for entry and status changes. There is a new email address for our department for quality assurance, the QA at yes-MLS. Kindly send all corrections there, opt-outs, and comp-only listings. We welcome other emails as well, but especially for those. We do have a new rule as of February of this year for 14 calendar days from the recording date, not recording date, to mark a listing closed. A reminder to submit coming soon documentation within 48 hours of the list date, a coming soon rule change, and some new status labels. As a reminder, the 48-hour rule, I still have some people calling and wondering how come it's not the 72-hour rule any longer for late entry. So it's required for the first 4 property types and also status changes. And that would be 2 working days of the effective date of the listing agreement. It applies to residential, single-family, condos, multifamily, that's 2 to 4 units, land, zone residential only, and farm agricultural listings. The 48-hour rule also applies to all status changes. That would be for contingent, pending, temporarily off the market, withdrawn, reactivate, as well as extensions and price changes. Closed listings. You're now allowed 14 calendar days to mark a listing closed from the recording date in our system. If it's more than 14 days, there is an automatic $50 non-waivable processing fee. This also applies to comp-only listings, pending expired listings as well, marking those closed. Some of this is a review, but it was important to get in. Coming soon rule requires a signed listing agreement and a signed coming soon seller authorization form. Those are both required to be submitted to the MLS. Another email address, coming soon at yes-mls.com within 48 hours of the list date. Otherwise, there's an automatic $100 penalty. The listing and primary photo must be input within 48 hours. And there's a 14-day maximum time period for that coming soon status. May not go any longer than that. Our current coming soon rule is that you may move up to a sooner date, the coming soon date, the activation date, or you may push it out for up to the 14 days, as long as there's a new seller authorization form signed by your seller. As of November 1st, the coming soon rule will change so that the seller may not move the coming soon date or active date to a sooner date. The coming soon active date may only be extended to a date in the future up to 14 days. And that's because somebody thought it's a coming soon listing, it's not coming soon for 10 days, I'll just set an appointment to go see it on that 11th day, only to find out that 7 days later it went active and is already contingent. It's part of the reasoning. Office exclusive listings. The seller has the right to decide on whether to place his or her property in the MLS. Listings that are withheld from the MLS are considered exempt or office exclusive or no MLS listings. The MLS is in the process of updating the forms to reflect the listing as an office exclusive. New statuses and labels. Currently, we have the existing pending and contingent status. We're really just putting new labels on them. So currently, pending status, the days on market do not accumulate. It's an off-market status. No showings are allowed. It's not fed through to public-facing websites, and it goes to pending expired. Contingent listings, currently, the days on market continue. It's an active status. They're active showings. It's on public-facing websites and must state in the broker remarks the reason for the contingent status, and it also expires on the expiration date. The new statuses are to better reflect what these statuses really mean and make it much easier to explain to your sellers. So UCAS is under contract allow showings. The seller has accepted an offer but wants to continue to show the property. Under contract no showings. There's an accepted offer, but the seller no longer wishes to show the property, and under contract expired. It happens automatically if the listing is in either of the first 2 statuses and it expires. The system will allow 180 days to mark that listing closed. It'll stay in that under contract expired status for 180 days and then go to expired. Just as contingent is now, under contract allows showings, it's on market, days on market accumulate, it's marketed and may be reactivated. Under contract, no showings is pending is now, it's an off-market status, days on market don't accumulate, may not market it, may reactivate it with a mutual release, and under contract expired. Currently, from contingent, it goes right to expired, so this will allow listings that are in contingent status that expire to have the 180 days to be marked sold, as well as the pending expired. I don't know if there are any questions. The effective date for this is, it has been approved by our board of directors. It's a matter of our software update, and I know it's been in process for several months, but I do not have a date. And with regard to public-facing websites, it will still show as contingent and pending. It will not translate to these statuses. Any other questions? I have been doing service seminars, and it's been very well received by agents and office staff. I can tell you that. Next, I have the privilege to introduce our experienced and talented account executive, Heidi. Okay, HomeSnap. HomeSnap is an app. The last time we were here, Joyce talked about it and encouraged you to install the app and begin to use it. We still want to encourage you to use that app. The Go NeoRx app will be phased out at the end of this month. So if you and your agents have not yet installed HomeSnap, you will want to do that immediately and start using that app, HomeSnap. HomeSnap is also starting something new, probably next week. This will be advertising your rental listings that are put into the MLS on Facebook Marketplace. So there's nothing extra that you have to do. Once the rental listing is put into Matrix, it will automatically be advertised on Facebook Marketplace. If there are any brokers that do not want that option and do not want their rentals advertised on Facebook Marketplace, then you will need to let us know that you would like to opt out of that option. New yesterday, Find has been around for years and years, and that allowed you to search for national listings anywhere in the United States. Yesterday, Realtor.com updated the site, and it's now called Professional Search. So any of those blue houses that you used to click on will have been replaced and are now the red house with the R on it from Realtor.com. So it's the Realtor.com Professional Search. And it just started yesterday, so if you clicked on Find yesterday, it did go to the new site. And it is a mobile-friendly site, so you can use it on your smartphones and your tablets. That was the one drawback of Find. It was not available on your smartphone, so you had to be at the computer to use the old Find site. So try that out. You can see active listings from any MLS. You also can see sold listings from the MLSs for the last 10 years. So it looks very much like the public site now. It's very similar, but it has more data for you as a real estate agent when you are logged into Matrix and click on this link. So the Professional Search gives you more information than the public. There was an upgrade to Matrix in August. It's now version 8.3. Lots of little new features were added. But things to make your lives easier. One of the options is sorting your listings. So you can now just pick up the listings on the left-hand side and move them to a different order on your screen. So just trying to make it easier for you. As you sort those listings, it will then print in the order that you have put them in. If you need to enter MLS numbers and you want to keep those in a specific order, you can now do that in the speed bar. So entering your MLS numbers at the top of Matrix in the speed bar will keep them in that order. Normally, in the past, when you entered your MLS numbers, it would sort by price. So status, area, and price is the normal sort, but now if you put MLS numbers in the speed bar, it has updated. They added an email button on your listings. So from the home page, when you click on My Listings, either My On-Market Listings, whatever status you click there, you now have the email button. You used to have a couple more clicks to get where you needed to go to email your own listings out to someone, so they've made it much easier for you. And if your clients are adding notes on the listings that you're sending to them, you now have the option of printing the listings and the notes that they have made. So you can add notes, they can add notes, and then all of those notes can be printed with the listings. And they added a multiple cart option. So you can just put in the contact one time and then keep listings sorted that you need to save for different reasons, but for the same people. So you've got multiple carts. That was new, added in August in that Matrix 8.3 upgrade. And in the spring, they did the Matrix 360 update. They integrated the Realist tax information into our Matrix system and added the search option for public records. So you still have Realist. You can always click and open up the Realist program and get the full information. But if you just need quick information, it's much faster and easier now just to go to search public record. You can put in a name, an address. The property does not ever have to have been listed, but it will still give you the tax information about that property without waiting for Realist to load and go through that long process. That tabs were added in the listings. It's called the Agent Full 360 display. You now have the listing information along with the tax tab, photo tab, the history tab, which shows you the listing history, the sales history, mortgage history, and foreclosure history if available. Parcel map gives you a satellite map with the aerial view, parcel map with the zoomed in lot dimensions, and a detailed map where you can use the PegMan to possibly, if Google has been down that street, look and see what the area looks like from the car. And a foreclosure tab is available for properties that are in foreclosure. You do have the option to print that information, and you can choose which of those tabs you would like to print out. As Carl mentioned, RealSafe Agent has updated their product. It now includes RealSafe Wire and RealSafe Chat. You can install that app that is included with your membership, and that can be installed on your smartphones, and you can start using that now as you are showing properties. You'll say start the showing, and then if you do need any help, you have the option of holding your finger on the screen, and it will notify anyone using the app. If you need police help, you can shake the phone. As long as you've said, I've started showing the property, you can shake the phone and that will call 911 for you. And then also, as Carl mentioned, centralized showing service was acquired by Showing Time. And that's all I have to say on that. All right. At the top of Matrix, we have our phone number. Call us if you have questions. Our help desk is there Monday through Friday, 8:30 till 5. If you have specific Matrix questions, there's also the option to contact Answerly in the evenings and on the weekends. We have an email address at the top of Matrix. You can email help@yes-mls.com. And I've gone through this very quickly. These things are on your news messages. Most of you just hit read later, and you don't even read it. So I want you to be aware these are all wonderful things that you have access to as a SMLS member, but also make sure that your agents are aware of all these great things that they have to use. And schedule an account executive to come to your office and give the update. It's much better when they hear it and see it than trying to read through a news message and figure it out on their own. Whether you have a large office or a small office, we do not care. So for all of you small brokers, we still want to schedule and come to your office. So let us know if you're not sure who your account executive. Just call the number at the top of Matrix or email the email address at the top. We'll get you set up. So one of the biggest things that agents struggle with is they're working on something and they get a phone call and somebody wants information and they need to leave that screen and lose what they're doing. You do not have to. You can right-click the Home tab and you can get a new session of Matrix right there within the browser that you are working on. What we typically see them do is they'll switch from their computer over to a tablet or a phone to look up something, and then that logs them out of their Matrix session on their computer. So rather than get logged out of what you're working on, just right-click the Home tab, and then either open a new tab or a new window. And you can have multiple open, not just one extra. If you need more than that, you can do that several times. So, any questions at all, you can email us help@yes-mls.com. Any questions for me right now? Okay, he's bringing the microphone. 1 second.
Are there any plans on the MLS to be able to send the property disclosures, like they paint right from the MLS instead of having to download it and send it in another email?
Very good question. I don't know if Matrix has any plans currently of updating that. We are hoping they do, but I don't know what's on their roadmap. But what we do have is in the HomeSnap app, they've already included it. So if you open that listing in HomeSnap, it'll ask you if you want to share those documents, and then it'll ask you how you want to share them. So if you want to email them, text them, it's very easy through the HomeSnap app. I think we have another hand.
Well, I was just going to say, we currently do it in Dotloop. We share it in Dotloop.
If it's your own documents, but if you have a buyer that's looking at this property and it's not your listing, then you need to get those from that listing and get those to that buyer. So it's a little bit harder process then, since you don't have those available to you in your Dotloop. Other questions? Okay, and we have Dave Phillips with Realtor.com up next.
Okay, so I will, in honor of your time, I'm going to go pretty quickly, and I'll be out at my table if you have any questions on anything that I blow through here. First off, just like to say thanks to Carl and his staff for making it so great to be one of your business partners, and for you guys for being such great partners. We really enjoy and appreciate this relationship we have, and you have a great MLS to work with. All right, so let's give you just a quick little update. These are all the products and services that belong to our company. Move.com, up in the top right-hand corner there, is the kind of mother company. And those are all the brands that they represent, including Realtor.com, which is the flagship of Move. And to further complicate things, we were purchased about 5 years ago by News Corp. So News Corp owns Move. Now, who owns Realtor.com? All right, sort of. This gets tricky. NAR owns the domain name Realtor.com, the URL. They own the domain name. They do not, however, own the company, Move, who runs it for them. It's a license agreement. We run it for the National Association of Realtors and pay according fees and stuff to NAR for that privilege. So that's the complicated part there. Feel free to be confused because everybody is. We share a brand. I say we're the little R, and you guys are the big R. And we clearly support everything in the Realtor organization. We want to be a great partner to all realtors. News Corp also owns real estate sites all over the world, especially in the Pacific Rim in Australia, where they own Realtor.com type sites and dominate those marketplaces in other areas. So we're not their first or only real estate space. Just want to give you a very quick update. Since News Corp bought us, we've more than doubled our traffic on our site, the UUs, as they call it, unique users that come to our site every month. It's actually, this says 16 million a month. It's actually, we had over 80 million in July and August this year, I believe it was. That's phenomenal growth. We were like 30 million when News Corp bought us. So they've done a great job of making our site relevant in today's marketplace. Finally, I want to point out down at the bottom right-hand corner, we're up to 1,900 employees with our recent acquisition last year of OpCity, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. We're doing a great job with getting technology. Some of this comes from the other News Corp systems that they own, especially Australia. They're very advanced with their technology. We're able to do 3D tours on your phone, on your mobile phone, just moving the property around with your finger. Pretty impressive stuff, as well as we have some other cool things in our app. Our app is rated #1 by consumers. But the industry is evolving, so not all is right, and we have work to do as an industry and as a real estate website. Uber and Amazon have made everything a instant gratification type of environment for consumers, and you know this. This is not news or anything, but what is possibly news to you is that real estate's not doing great with that. So Realtor.com, we capture consumers who are interested in connecting with an agent and looking at a property, and they send in what's commonly known as a lead form, but only 50% of the time do you guys respond to those leads when we send them to you. And you're paying for those. So people buy these leads from us, and then only 50% of the time they are actually getting a response. Can you imagine how successful Uber or Amazon would be if only 50% of the time your order went through or your car showed up? Not very successful. So that's a challenge in the entire industry, and clearly with us. Let's just look at what we currently have done for years. We've had this product called Advantage Pro, where brokers can enhance their listings and get leads on your own listings, send directly to you. If a consumer submits a lead on one of those listings, it comes to you. However, guess who's the worst at following up on leads when they're sent to you? The listing agent. The worst. See what I'm saying? So we've got a problem. One other new product that we introduced, just to let you know, called Local Expert. We have a City Expert as well that's very similar. Allows you to do some branding and advertising around specific searches on areas that you might represent. So that's a newer product out there. Feel free to ask me about it. And then I want to talk about the acquisition of OpCity, because that's what we're doing to address the problem of leads not getting followed up on. OpCity's got a room full of 500 people sitting there responding to leads instantly. I'm pretty sure not many real estate firms can say that about leads, right? So instantly these consumers are getting a response back. We're qualifying, making sure they're legitimate buyers, and then we're doing a warm handoff on the phone to a realtor to handle the lead. So that's a different process than what we currently, where we send you a bunch of leads, and 5 to 10% of them would be good. Then in this case, we're sending you only leads that have been already qualified, and so they're a lot more likely to close. And the best part is you don't pay for OpCity until or if you close. So there's no fee up front. It's a fee if the transaction goes to closing. So see me if you have anything more. I'm not selling any of this, by the way, but I can tell you about it, all right? And finally, just a quick plug. Put this in front of your agents. I have a flyer right here about your profiles. Agents are still not filling out their profile on Realtor.com as well as they should, and this hurts your business. It hurts it because when consumers are thinking about working with an agent, what do? They Google them, right? And when they Google them, and we're Realtor.com, and they're looking for a realtor, we come up very high in the search engines, and we do a lot to make sure that happens. So their profile on Realtor.com is going to be one of the first things the consumer sees, and if it's not filled out or looks terrible, they're going to go somewhere else. So this is going to hurt your business. Make sure your agents are filling it out and doing it well. With that, I will finish and say thank you very much for allowing us to be a sponsor.
Thank you, Dave. And I do appreciate Realtor.com did sponsor breakfast this morning, so that's been here one more time. If anybody's interested, we can give away some door prizes. We do have a minute for any questions that weren't asked that you might have while we're getting that ready. Is there any other questions we didn't address? One over there with John.
Thank you. Real quick, Dave, the merger with OpCity, do you see the future with Realtor.com? Incubating those things, like you said, it sounds back to us, but how does that affect the lenders, the title company, choices of, I'm not sure what happens when that lead's being incubated, if you're pushing them to your preferred vendors, or do we lose that? It's just going to be handed over to us at a... Right.
I think heard the question. So if you're a mortgage, if you have a mortgage company in your firm, then yes, Opcity probably is competing with you for that mortgage end of things. They do have agreements with some mortgage companies and will recommend those to buyers if they haven't already done that.
Thank you. Okay. Think we get a winner drawing here.
We have several giveaways. There we go. Can you hear me? All right, let's start in the line with Donna here.
Hi, I'm Donna from Showing Time. So, and by the way, I have a feeling some people might want to talk to me. I'm right outside the door for after the event. All right, Candace Everhart. This is a $50 Amazon gift card for Candace.
All right.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Amy O'Brien with 2 Men in a Truck, moving and storage in Cleveland. I have a $25 gift certificate to Dunkin' Donuts, a 2 Men in a Truck mug, some chip clips, some candy, and stuff. Haley Green.
Haley Green.
Yes, MLS has two $25 Visa cards. We brought 2 names. Carol, you want to draw those?
Sure.
Okay, we have Sarah Golem. Old one. Is the winner for the... Antonia Potts. And Business Machines has a Office Jet printer they're giving away. Draw the name.
Oh, you want to read it? Bill Agadam.
We'd like to ask you a favor, please. In your packets, there is evaluation forms. If you would please fill them out and leave them, we would surely appreciate it. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.